Good day, YouTube. So part of the CIS 2.8 release, we have implemented a new deployment option. Now, this deployment option is very specific, and it's very specific to the VMware Antrea CNI. However, we are receiving quite a few customers engaging or communicating or saying that they want to start to use this Antrea agent. And so what we've done is we've added Node Port Local as a third deployment option. So the two previous deployment options were cluster IP, that's big IP directly to pod, Node Port, that's big IP directly to Node or via kube proxy. And now the introduction of Node Port Local, and as you can see from the documentation, CIS consumes Node Port Local and maps that to the Antrea agent. And in the demo that you're going to see, we kind of go through the configurations and kind of what it looks like. And my colleague Lavanya from product development explains a little bit more about what the pool member is and kind of how the traffic pattern is working. So I don't want to go into that too much because I'm going to leave it for Lavanya. But what's really important here is that unlike Node Port, where if I scroll up to Node Port, you are communicating directly to and via kube proxy. With the Node Port Local using the Antrea agent, we bypass the kube proxy and route the traffic directly to the pod using the information that we have. So this information is new. This is part of the CIS 2.8 release. So please go ahead and test it, fully documented, fully supported, and now available on GitHub. Let's take a look quickly at the VMware Tanzu Node Port Local configuration. And again, I'm not going to go into it too much because Lavanya is going to demo it in this video. So as you can see from the documentation on Cloud Docs, you can see here the VMware Tanzu piece. And so this just talks a little bit about the overview, kind of where it's come from, and that information, etc. So there's not a lot that we have to do here on the configuration of big IP, which is actually quite nice. So it's a little bit more simpler, I think, than CNI integration using something like VXLAN or Calico from a BGP perspective, because there's a little bit more configuration. But really what's required is the Antrea agent config map. This is something that would be there in Kubernetes already by setting up the Antrea agent. Now what's interesting here is that we tested with, at the time, the latest 1.4, and I believe that 1.5 might be out or might be coming out. We shouldn't have any problems. Test it. If you have problems, let us know and we can validate it, etc. So this would be configured as the config map. This is something that's configured in Kubernetes. It's kind of outside the scope of F5. What the only difference is, and Lavanya shows us in the demo, is in the CIS as an argument, change Node Port Local. This is a CIS argument. You could actually see the deployment manifest right here. So that's the one item that you need to do. And the second item is change the annotation. So those are the only two items that you would have to do. CIS will work like it has been in the past. The only difference here is it now supports this third deployment option of Node Port Local. And that is ultimately it. You could actually see here that here is the description of this pod, and you can see from the description of the pod, you can actually see the annotation getting added here. Take a look. There are a few limitations. They're being documented here. If you want any more information, please reach out to us. You can reach out to me via this video. Enjoy the demo and have a lovely day.
Hi all, this demo is for Node Port Local mode introduced in CIS to support Antrea CNI's Node Port Local feature. So node port local feature is introduced to address certain drawbacks on with kube-proxy's node port mode. So unlike kube-proxy's node port mode, where the port is exposed on all the nodes of the cluster, in node port local, only the port is exposed on the node where the pod is running. So it decreases the port requirements and where the port needs to be exposed on firewall and everything. And also it removes like secondary hop of load balancing that is done by kube-proxy in node port mode.
So Lavanya, question for you. So with node port local, we don't connect directly to kube-proxy. We bypass kube-proxy, correct?
That's right. Yeah. If I can show you an example, like diagram, like in node port mode, when we expose the pool members on the big IP, first it goes to the kube-proxy, and then it load balance to the specific node where the pool member is present. Now in node port local, since the pod is exposed only on the node where it is running, the pool member is directly goes to the node where it is exposed. Based on IP table rules, it will forward the traffic to the pod backend. So it bypasses the kube-proxy here.
So does Big IP's pool members, we're going to see in a demo, Big IP's pool members will be still the IP address of the node, not the IP address of the pod.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
No problem. We'll see that in the demo.
Okay. So coming to the CIS configuration, first of all, we have introduced a new mode called node port local mode. So in pool member type, you need to set the option as node port local. Remember, this is only supported with Antrea CNI's node port local feature. So this node port local argument is supported only when the clusters are enabled with Antrea CNI. So this is the configuration change we require. Okay. So coming to the deployment, I have a sample deployment, a Hello World deployment here. Let me deploy it. Namespace, I can give CIS namespace. And then coming to the service, we need to add this annotation node port local Antrea enable true, so that Antrea agent looks for this annotation, and based on this annotation, it will annotate the node port type, node IP and port information on the pods, matching this selector. Let me create this service and show you how it affects.
So we always use just cluster IP there, right? But the most important thing is the annotation, right?
Yes, the type is still cluster IP. If it is node port, this node port local mode is not implemented. Okay. Only when it is cluster IP and the annotation is present, then the Antrea agent will annotate the pods. So the service is created. Let's check all the pods that are matching this selector of the service. So these are the two pods that are matching. This is the annotation that is added on the pod. If you can see, this is the port where the application is exposed, pod 8080. It is reachable through this node IP in the specific node port where it is exposed. Let me create a sample virtual server and show the big IP configuration. This is the virtual server I have, pointing to the service we have just created. Let's see the big IP launch. So it is posted. Let's see the big IP configuration. So this is a virtual server that is created. We can check the pool members. So these are the two replicas of the F5 Hello World, and the node port and node IP is added as the pool members. This is the deployment. Let me remove the custom resource mode. the same service and deployment are there in my project. Let me use the same service to deploy some ingress. So this is the sample ingress I have pointing to the service F5 Hello World. It is posted. Let's check the bigger one. So it is TLS ingress. So we have two virtual servers created. We can check the pool. The same node IP and ports will be added because backend pods are same.
Very nice.